Well, first of all, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you for joining us. Tell me a bit about Challenge Seattle, what the purpose is.
Well, it started about 5 years ago, and it's, all the major companies in the area, Boeing, Microsoft, Nordstrom, Costco, etc. And it was really about the CEOs of those companies coming together saying, we've kind of expanded globally, but we want to look back internally and see if we can't provide some civic leadership to deal with some of our bigger challenges, maybe in a new way, a different way, using technology, new innovation ideas. So we're working on K through 12, we're working on transportation, middle income housing, and what we call the Cascadia corridor from Vancouver, British Columbia to Portland, Oregon. So they're all committed to try and make things better by contributing, giving back to the community.
So then the pandemic comes along and all of these businesses really came together quickly to help flatten the curve. Can you explain to us what they did, what happened?
So I got a call from Mayor Durkin on a Friday night, February 28th. She indicated to me that we'd had our first death and that we had a breakout at a nursing home in Kirkland. And she said, is there anything you can do with the business community to help out? And I said, let's go to work. So I called for an emergency meeting of all the CEOs on Sunday, March 1. At that meeting, we all agreed, because we represent about 250,000 employees, that we had to all in unison talk about the same thing based on data and science and facts and experts, and not rumor or anything else. Tell it like it is. If we made a mistake, go back and say it. But so we began calls every day at noon, bringing the experts on. Then our CEOs and companies would communicate back to their employees. We also agreed that first day, what if we acted in unison? Because we've got those who of course do business in China. And they said, lessons learned there, decisive, immediate action. And they began that action on Monday. That was a Sunday. On Monday, they began with Microsoft calling for all those who could work from home to work from home, Amazon, Warehouser, and the list went on. And from there, we said, we're going to keep up those noon calls. We're going to invite more of the business community in. We're all going to work together. And we're going to reach out to the community at large to see how we can help people get through this coronavirus challenge that we've got. And that created, frankly, in my personal opinion, probably the most unique, best public-private partnership I've seen in my lifetime.
So you worked with a consulting group in Boston, and you have this two-tiered checklist that's meant to help us get a handle on what we do to get business open and to go forward. Can you describe what sorts of recommendations came in those lists?
Right. So we wanted to help all businesses, all employers actually, whether it was schools or nonprofits or businesses. And so we want to give them a head start through the lens of public health. What can you do to reopen your business in a way that will make your employees feel good about coming back to work, confident about it, and the same will be true of any customers or suppliers, any visitors who come on the site. So we gave a list of basic recommendations, and then we gave some additional considerations depending on how size of your company, and if in fact we confront another wave, we're going to have to bear down even tougher in what we're doing if we don't want to go back to a stay-at-home order. And so it's really to help all those employers get started well before the governor was able to begin the guideline process so that they could be ready. And now the governor has embraced it, has said it's a great start, and is building additional guidelines off our base recommendations.
Well, let's break this down into employers, employees, and customers. What do employers need to do? What are they most responsible for as businesses open?
So to make that work site safe, in other words, obviously make sure it's clean, and you've got a procedure in place to make sure it's clean in any way that you can. Starbucks is a perfect example where they're constantly cleaning and making sure that everything's good. Obviously, social or physical distancing to make sure that people do not have to come in contact if they don't. To make sure that people are being screened when they come into the work site, whether it's an employer or a visitor, because if we need to do contact tracing, We don't want to shut down forever. So let's know who was there. We can help the investigator from public health if we do. So it's those kinds of things. It's also about how do you communicate with your employees? How do you give them a real sense of commitment to safety so they feel good? How do you post your plan at your work site so anybody who comes in feels good about visiting there, knowing full well that that business has said safety first?
Employees then, co-workers, what are they responsible for, do you think?
So really employees need to do their own, at minimum, self-certification. So at home, they may take their own temperature. When they arrive at the work site and maybe log in, they can represent to their employer and to those with whom they work. I'm symptom-free, I don't have a fever, I feel good, I'm going to do my best. Wear a mask whenever they're going to come within 6 feet of a fellow employee. Abide by the CDC guidelines. You know, all too often we think this is just about us protecting ourselves and maybe we're young and it doesn't matter if we get it. No, it's really about protecting ourselves and protecting everybody around us. So I'm not, but if I was young, I could be asymptomatic and I could be infecting people around me. So wear the mask. Do everything you can to protect yourself and your fellow employees, and work with your employer so that contact tracing can work as effectively as possible if in fact you have someone who tests positive at your work site.
So then we come to the trickiest group, and that is the customer, who may or may not want to abide by whatever the guidance is inside that store, or who may not want to wear a mask and is in and out of several stores, and employees are, basically stuck there with customers coming in and out. What do we as citizens and customers of businesses have as our own responsibility, both moral and public health wise?
Again, we need, as a member of the public, to understand that we have a civic responsibility here. Yes, it's to maintain our own safety, but it's to maintain the safety of everybody else. You know, they had a terrible breakout in another country, and it was one person who went to multiple bars in a given evening, and now 85 people are infected. Lesson learned. So it shows that every one of us can make a significant difference, positive or negative. So we're looking out for ourselves, we're looking out for our families, we're looking out for our fellow human being, and we're accepting. We may hate that mask. If we can't wear it for medical reasons or otherwise, yes, and respect that. But if we can, wear that mask. Socially distance. Make sure that when you go into a place that you are making sure that you're stepping back at least 6 feet. Costco's doing a fabulous job of ensuring that that happens, and people are going along with it. Now, I know people are frustrated. I know they want out, and the weather this past weekend was an invitation. But again, be mindful whatever we do. We have a responsibility as a member of the community to protect ourselves and everybody else.
What's available to a business if a customer does not want to respect the social distancing?
So, all of our companies are debating that. And we're talking about, does the company require anybody who comes on the premises to wear a mask? Do they do temperature taking of anybody who comes in by ultra red? Do they require the social distancing that they should? And what if somebody says no? And so what we're talking about is, number one, let's educate. Let's educate about what's at stake and how important it is, and ask people to please do what they can. If they refuse, then the business has to make the decision about whether they call for help to remove the individual or whether they undertake to remove the individual. But I hope with all the success that's been achieved thus far in this state, a model to others by the public stepping up and doing the right thing, that we can continue to see that. And quite frankly, the rest of us making sure that we hold our fellow human being accountable too, and ask them, not get in their face, but ask them if they would please wear a mask.
Yeah, that seems like that might be the tricky part of this as we go forward, the human engineering of it all. What are the proposals for supporting higher risk people who are employees? There are people who already have, everybody's calling comorbidities, have other health problems and difficulties. How do we protect them so that they have a safe place to be employed?
Big issue, really big issue for employers. CDC has described those folks over 60 or 65, those with an underlying health condition. So if they come back to work, and let's say they have a public-facing job, maybe they're taking the pay for the people that are purchasing or what have you. Those people who are fearful because they are considered vulnerable or high risk can ask and should be willing to ask the employer to be reassigned or accommodated to do something else. The employer has to have a really good relationship with the employee to make sure that they're not fearful and they feel good about coming to work, and that they're willing to ask for an accommodation if that's really what they want and they need. And where we really are asking employers, if people can work from home, please let them continue to work from home, so that those that do come are absolutely critical to the mission of the operation, where social distancing is made much easier because you don't have your entire workforce. And then you can better accommodate those who fit into that category of being vulnerable. At the end of the day, employers have to be careful because they may get so many requests that they cannot accommodate all of them. And so they're going to have to set some priorities and how they're going to deal with that. So we try in our document to give them advice on how to think about it, how to deal with it. But priority number one is have a good working relationship with that employee, build trust between the employer and the employee, do the right thing by both.
Do you worry that people who have comorbidities or people who are just older, maybe perfectly healthy, but they're in their 60s, might face some discrimination as a result of this?
Yes, we got a letter from AARP. It was one of the most well-written letters I've received in a long time. It wasn't a complaint, it wasn't an in-your-face, it was an expression of concern. Is this going to result in people who have underlying health conditions or people who are older being discriminated in the workplace? And that's why in our advice to employers, we remind them that anything that comes close to that is a whole different world, and you cannot discriminate against your employees. But in order to see us through until we have a vaccine available, we really do need to be mindful of protecting and making a safe place for those who are considered vulnerable by the CDC.
Well, let's hope that we can do this. I feel like if we're reasonable with each other, we can get through this.
I know it's a frustrating time. I have felt the frustration myself. My husband and I are still married after almost 3 months being in this situation. Just kidding.
There should be some kind of medal we get.
Exactly. But so I know the frustration. I know the people who've lost work. I know the employers who feel that they've lost their businesses. I can feel that frustration. But if we don't all come together now in the hopes that we can see our way through this to a good time, a better time, respectful of each other, willing to protect ourselves and others, we cannot. This is going to take every one of us. You can't point your finger at business or point your finger at government. It's point your finger at yourself and say, I am going to be a contributor to success. And I got to tell you, I went through the big recession. We tried to prepare ourselves to come out of that. It took us a long time, but remember, we came out #1 in the country for economic advancement out of that recession. We can do it again.
You are always so proud of our state, aren't you?
I am. And its people. We are blessed here. Yep.
And its people. Thank you so much. It was great to see you. You look wonderful and have a very fast recovery.
You as well. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.